Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new Trains Are Awesome video. Today's video is in what can only be described as one of the most interesting cities in America I have ever been to. Portland has everything. Beautiful nature, an eccentric culture scene, and if you're a fan of rain, Portland is definitely the place to be. But aside from all that, Portland also has a really good public transportation network, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I came to Portland to ride Amtrak's Empire Builder, but when I had a day in the city, I decided to ride the light rail and the streetcar. Wait, streetcar, light rail, what's the difference? Well, in Portland, they are actually two separate systems. In this video, first we'll be riding TriMet's Max light rail system, then we'll be heading to a very special bridge that is only for public transportation, bikes, and pedestrians, and finally we'll be taking a ride on the newer streetcar system. If you love train travel, hit that subscribe button. We upload at least once a week, and this way you won't miss any of our content. The first system we'll be looking at today is the Metropolitan Area Express, also known as MAX. The MAX light rail system opened in 1986 and is currently operated by the transit authority known as TriMet. MAX is the larger of the two light rail systems, both in track length, which is 59.7 miles, as well as in vehicle size. Let's go buy a ticket. So we'll buy a one-day pass, which will be $5. And then in order to validate your hop ticket, scan it. An interesting feature to notice is that the platforms are capable of handling two sets coupled together and fit exactly into one block. And the city blocks in Portland are very short compared to many other American cities, which is why the trains can't be any longer, otherwise they'd block railroad crossings, something Amtrak doesn't seem to have any trouble with. For our first trip aboard MAX today, we are on a Blue Line service headed west towards Hillsborough. We board slightly east of the main downtown area in Chinatown. The vehicle we're on is a Type 3 light rail vehicle, but more on that in a little bit. The Blue Line, which is a name that was adopted in 2001, is the original MAX light rail line. Although the initial section opened in 1986, it was extended towards Hillsborough to the west in 1998. We are now passing the Pioneer Courthouse. Not only is this building a monument of the city, it is also completely circled by 4 different MAX light rail tracks. Blue and red line run on the tracks north and south of the square, whereas the green, yellow, and orange lines run on the tracks east and west of the square. The tracks in this part of the city are located on one-way streets, meaning that they are separated based on the direction of travel. MAX light rail is a unique system in that it has both metro-like features as well as street running, and the street running has often been used as a complaint against the system. Outside of the street running section, trains can reach a top speed of 55 miles per hour, which really is not bad for an urban transit system. But of course, during the street running sections, which are located in downtown Portland and downtown Hillsborough, speeds are restricted to 35 miles per hour because the trains are sharing the road with cars and other traffic. We are now headed into the Robertson Tunnel. At 2.9 miles, this is the longest tunnel on the MAX network. It was completed in 1998 in time for the Blue Line extension and is currently served by both the Blue and the Red Lines. This station, which is in the middle of the Robertson Tunnel, is Washington Park Station. It is the deepest subway station in the United States and is going to be the subject of next Wednesday's video. As you can see, our speeds are really picking up as we approach the Beaverton Transit Center. This is the end of the Red Line, although there are plans in the future to extend Red Line service. Don't worry, I'm not avoiding talking about this man flipping our train driver off, but I'm going to discuss it a little bit more at length later. So this is the Beaverton Transit Center, a through station on the Blue Line, the terminus of the Red Line. I found the ride over here to be pretty pleasant. Beaverton lets you transfer to West Commuter Rail, which will be the subject of next Saturday's video. Look at this train, it's got the old Max livery. Now let's talk about rolling stock on the Max Light Rail. The Type 1 was built by Bombardier in 1986, whereas Type 2 and 3 were built by Siemens, as were Type 4 and 5. Types 2 to 5 were introduced in 1997, 2003, 2009, and 2015 respectively. You can also take Max to get to and from the airport. Portland Airport is served by the Max Red Line. The train station is located at the end of the baggage claim hall, and most of the walk is indoors, which is nice because, as you can see, it rains a lot in Portland. Here's a Type 4 train ready to take us towards downtown, and our hostel where we'll be staying for the night. This was actually my very first ride on TriMet. Overall, it was a pleasant experience going from the airport to the city, but once we had reached the city limits, things began to get a little crazy. Several disruptive passengers got on the train. Some began verbally and at one point physically attacking each other. Another lady just started eating trash, which there was an abundance of on the train.
The doors are closing. Train departing. Please hold on. In the priority seating area, you are required to move for seniors and people with disabilities.
Now don't get me wrong, I did feel a deep sense of compassion for my fellow passengers on the train, but at the same time there were moments where I felt unsafe as a passenger, and I think that this is something that prevents people from taking public transportation when they have the option. It's a new day and we're back on a Blue Line train headed to the Pioneer Courthouse. We're going to use this interchange to change to an Orange Line train to visit a very special bridge in Portland. So this is the Pioneer Courthouse. This is where you can transfer between all the TriMet lines. Now I'm gonna go to that platform over there and transfer to a combined yellow and orange line train to transfer to our next mode of transportation, which is the Portland Streetcar. And while I'm waiting for my Max, I will tell you how I feel about it. I don't know how to put it any other way. So I actually have to walk around the courthouse to get to the southbound platforms. It's fun to watch all the Max trains coming through here. Later in the day, I took a seat in a coffee shop on the second floor and just looked at all the trains for about an hour. Very relaxing, highly recommend. The TriMet logo is also very cool. So obviously TriMet means 3 metropolitan areas. And so there's 3 circles, but the 3 circles together form a rose shape. And of course, Portland is known as the City of Roses. So here I am waiting for my Orange Line train to bring me to the Tilikum crossing. I don't entirely know how to pronounce that. But what do I think of TriMet's Max? As a system, I love it. I think it's a great way of using light rail to be both like a tram system as well as a long distance metro. The rolling stock it's basic, but it does the job well. I also really appreciate the staff. However, I really do think that they could improve in surveillance. I do not get intimidated easily. Yet riding the Max, I felt less safe than riding the L in Chicago in the middle of the night. Like the fights between people. There was one person in my train who was just blowing a whistle. My ears still hurt from it. The rudeness towards staff and towards fellow passengers. It is very, very uncomfortable. And I think that it is definitely something that you could do something about. So that is my one suggestion. Now we're getting on an orange line train southbound. Or is it a yellow line train? If you look at the MAX network map, you'll notice that orange and yellow kind of merge into each other. And personally, I don't really understand why it was chosen to do it this way. I would have just marked the entire line as either yellow or orange on the map to avoid confusion. Either way, we're headed towards the Tilikum crossing. And that little streetcar is headed towards the Tilikum crossing as well. Here on the west bank of the Willamette River, our MAX light rail train meets a Portland streetcar train. Whereas in many cities, light rail and streetcar are one and the same, as I said in the introduction, the Portland streetcar is a completely separate transit system from MAX light rail. So this is South Waterfront, Southwest Moody Station. It is one stop before the Willamette River, and it's a shared station between the MAX light rail and the Portland streetcar. And the reason I'm getting off here is because of that bridge right there. That's the Tilikum crossing, and it's awesome. So first of all, what's cool about this, oh look, there's the Portland aerial tram. Sorry, got distracted there for a moment. So the outer tracks here are for MAX, and the inner tracks are for the streetcar. And watch. Two become one. That's right, the streetcar and the MAX are completely separate systems, but they are, to a certain degree, compatible. Mostly the streetcar trains can run on the MAX network. The MAX trains would have trouble making some of the turns on the streetcar network. So that is the first cool feature of this bridge. Now the second cool feature, apart from its impressive design, is its use. This bridge is only used by buses, streetcars, MAX light rails, pedestrians such as ourselves, and cyclists. That's right, no cars allowed. As an urban dweller and a public transport enthusiast who also loves to ride his bike, this is what the world needs more of. Infrastructure that makes cities livable and that eliminates the car. They can go ahead and drive over that bridge if they want to cross the river so badly. I'm not judging you for driving your car. I just like, between car drama in my life and my love for public transportation, there's just a clear winner in my heart. Look, a submarine. Now we're on the east bank of the Willamette River, and over here the streetcar and MAX tracks separate again. At this stop, you can also visit Oregon Rail. I think this is like a museum or like a heritage foundation or something. So now we're gonna ride the Portland Streetcar. This is a completely separate system from the MAX. As you can see on this map, the thin lines are MAX and the thick ones are the Portland Streetcar. Now there is the counterclockwise B loop and the clockwise A loop that kind of loop around the Willamette River, and then there's also the north-south line, which kind of does its own thing. And I can use my Hop Fast Pass on the streetcar too. So since the wait for the streetcar is kind of long, let me tell you a little bit about the streetcar. It is a lot newer system than the MAX. The MAX was opened in the 1980s, and the first streetcar line opened in 2001. So I want to take the B loop, but that screen above me says expect delays on the B loop, and they're supposed to run every 15 minutes. I've been here for almost half an hour, so part of me is wondering if I should have hopped on that A loop that just left. I really hope I'm not stuck here. If I am, Max stop is right back there, and I'll have to find a different place to ride the streetcar, because I really do want to ride the streetcar. I was literally about to call them and ask them where the streetcar is, but I just see one winding its way down the Tilikum crossing, so it's here.
This is a Beaverton streetcar to Portland State via the Pearl District.
The original Portland streetcar line was the north-south line on the west bank of the river, and this loop, which crosses the river, was opened in 2012, 11 years after the original opening.
Next stop is Northwest 9th and Lovejoy.
So besides being a few decades newer than the MAX light rail, the Portland streetcar is also a lot shorter. The entire network measures about 7 miles long. While MAX uses a combination of its own right-of-ways and street running, the Portland streetcar is almost entirely a street running network. This saved a lot in construction costs, but it does mean that the average speed of the system is a little bit slower. Not a huge deal considering it's a short system. And hey, I'd rather take a delay and a slow streetcar than be one of these people who just got a fat parking ticket. The trains on the streetcars themselves are owned and managed by TriMet, same as Max Light Rail, but the tracks are owned by the city of Portland. The streetcar crosses the Willamette River on the north side on the Broadway Bridge, whereas the Max Light Rail crosses the river on the Steel Bridge, which we can see here in the background. The Broadway Bridge is located very close to Union Station. We'll be back here at Union Station in just a few weeks to ride aboard Amtrak's Empire Builder, all the way to Chicago, Illinois. Now, if you've been paying attention to American public transit in recent years, you'll notice that streetcar systems have experienced a huge boom since the turn of the 21st century. Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Atlanta, they all have streetcar networks. And many of them are small, but they're still there. And Portland was actually kind of the founder of that movement. After the Portland streetcar opened in 2001, many American cities followed suit with this mode of transportation. So like I said before, there is a little bit of compatibility between MAX and the streetcar. Trains run on the same gauge tracks and use the same electrification, but the streetcar using smaller vehicles do have tighter turn radiuses that MAX vehicles would not be able to make. So I guess the reason that streetcar was delayed was because people were parking their cars on the tracks. Time to take one last streetcar to Union Station. What are your thoughts on the livery of the streetcar? The front and the left side of the train are one color, while the back cab and the other side of the train are a different color. I personally haven't made up my mind yet. I think it's creative color use, but I don't know if it flows very well, especially when it abruptly changes color towards the back of the train. The streetcar drops you off not far from Union Station. I actually really enjoyed the Portland streetcar. Sure, the wait at OMSI wasn't pleasant in the rain. Also wasn't really their fault. People shouldn't park their cars on railroad tracks. But it helped me see a part of town that I otherwise wouldn't have seen. It makes for a great dense network over there in downtown Portland. And you know, when it comes to transit, most of the time more is better. Now, the real question, which did I prefer, MAX or the streetcar? Well, they both had different qualities that I appreciated. I really like the fact that the MAX almost kind of operated as a metro. Like, I appreciate the airport connection, the big transit centers. The Washington Park station is really cool, and that they could go faster. The streetcar really is at the whim of traffic signals. That being said, riding the streetcar was so much more pleasant than riding the MAX in terms of who I was riding with. We had one disruptive passenger on the streetcar, and staff addressed it in a patient and calm and graceful manner. They made conversation and they resolved the situation. So I think MAX should have staff like that on their trains. So those are the two light rail systems in Portland. Two very different systems, but together they make a network that, for an American city of this size, is really good. Which one is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome for more videos like this, and we'll see you next time.